All right, guys, will trade war crash the classic car market? This is Bid Nerds. We're going to make some predictions. Let's go. Bid Nerds is your YouTube card game show. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a live Bid Nerds. It's a Sunday night. Thanks for being here, everyone. We had to take a week off. I had a little bit of a dental emergency. I've been recovering, so thanks for all the kind wishes from everyone. I'm here missing a tooth, but whatever. I've always been a little bit low rent. How you doing, Michael Deeb? This is Bid Nerds. We are coming to you live from the Container Park in downtown Las Vegas, along with my partner Michael Deeb over there in San Francisco. What's up, Deeb?
I'm doing great, JP, and I don't think anybody in the Nerd Herd is worried about you. We're all worried about Rochelle because I have it on good authority. She said to chew your food for the last week, so I'm hoping she's going to get a much-needed rest, and maybe you'll pay for a spa day for her for taking care of you. But JP, you look great. Welcome back, and to the Herd and everybody that's been out there waiting for us, thank you for sticking around. It is fantastic to be back.
Yeah, my wife definitely, I owe her. She's been taking care of me for a solid over a week. It was pretty rough. But, yeah, we're back. Yeah. All right, so let's get to it. Everyone's, look, a lot's happened. I mean, it feels like 1 week off. Like we missed, 2 shows? And it's like the entire
crypto went up
world
and down
is just crazy right now. People are freaking the F out. So I don't know if you've looked at Twitter. It's like you can't, you gotta, it's just like you have no idea what the headlines are. There's just too much winning. Tariffs abound. Apparently we're in a trade war now or something with Mexico and Canada. This ish is happening. So tonight's kind of overall theme, I'm not going to get super into it, but will a trade war affect the value of our classic and collectible cars? That's a big question tonight. We're going to go over the predictions we made on the last episode, which is kind of a little bit before all of this, but we'll get into that more deeply when we get into our predictions on the other side of the show. So let's get to it, Deeb. We made some predictions about a week ago. What was the first car that we made a prediction about on the last show?
All right, JP, we opened up the last show's new reviews with this stunning 1993 Jaguar XJ220N, which we did absolutely no research on, other than to say there were XJ220 street cars and XJ220 race cars, but I believe the N cars kind of fit in between, sort of like a cup car, because I think this car is mostly stock, but has been prepared for closed course competition. So really interesting car. And obviously, Anthony and all the gang up in Boise, Idaho, corrected me when I went up for a visit, JP, that a car like this Jaguar could be registered on the road in some of the lower 48. Idaho would welcome a car like this. You could go down to the DMV and slap a plate on it. They don't care. But here in California, this is a car that would never be on the road unless you had like a dealer plate or some other fine exemption. A premium listing, JP, hard to find comps on. When we look at street cars, they're in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and race cars with real racing history at some of the big sports car races around the globe back in the early 90s. Some of those cars go for $1 million. So it was very difficult to predict where this car would sell. JP, I did the bidding. I opened at $450,000. You opened the bidding at $490,000, and I will qualify my bid as saying I didn't think it would sell for my number, but I really wasn't sure. And then you came in over me at $490. John, our car did really, really well. $691,234 where it's sold on a respectable 39 bids. I mean, that's just an outstanding achievement by our friends at, and I'm sure this is 911R, WAB, in Newbury Park, California. Race cars are so difficult to sell, and Jaguars are so difficult to sell. I really was not optimistic that this racing Jaguar would find a home. So the fact that it got nearly $700,000 and it sold, I think, is an outstanding job by the seller. And congratulations to the new owner. You have one of the most expensive paperweights I've ever seen. It is absolutely beautiful, and I hope you park it in your office instead of on the track, because I doubt it'll make a lap. Anyway, JP, where are you at on that result? Are you as taken aback by that result as I am? That's a lot of money.
I'm taken aback that it didn't bring more. I mean,
Really?
I'm surprised. Yeah, honestly, I mean, like we always talk about the Porsches and you know, particularly the GT3s or the RSs or the Club Sports, those always bring way more money. So when you have a car like this, you know, people love the XJ220. I said it on the last episode. I've never really regarded this car as special because it just doesn't do anything for me for some reason. I don't know what it is. Maybe I've never driven one or experienced one. I just think of Jag and I just don't think of hypercar, you know, early hypercar. But people, look, this car is in the same stratosphere as like a 959 or an F40 or a McLaren F1. A lot of people really think of the XJ220 as that type of car. It was, at its time, the fastest car in the world, right? There was nothing faster for a while this car was in its contemporary form. So, yeah, I just feel like these cars, XJ220s in general, should be, if a 959 is bringing a couple $1 million, a McLaren F1, an F40, those are all multi-million-dollar cars. Why? I'm asking you, my partner Deeb, who I think you know a little bit more about these hypercars of that era. Why isn't this car held in the same regard, and why don't they bring as much money as those cars?
Because it's British. Like, again, you go to the garage and get in the 959.
Well, what's
you
McLaren?
Drive that car. Yeah, well, I think the McLaren has a BMW drivetrain. It's, you know, it's German.
Okay.
It's Anglo-German. You know what I mean? This car is British through and through. And this
I didn't
really
mean that
is
as a gotcha, but I just don't think we can pass this off on it's British. I mean, who cares?
Well, it's Jaguar.
A
Bugatti
Veyron is British, right? And those are, you know,
no.
Well, I mean,
it's
a British company. Yeah, but it's owned by Vagcom now, and it's all German.
Yeah.
But you know,
right.
The point is that like a McLaren or a Jaguar or whatever, I feel like any car that has ever held the fastest car in the world moniker should, even for a short amount of time, should be $1 million car, especially one from the 80s or 90s or early.
And I'll give you that. That's a great argument that the model and its achievements and its significance in the marketplace and the hierarchy of supercars in period should outshine the make that stands behind it. And what I'm saying is the make, being that it's a 90s Jaguar, is what holds it back. And the reason why our GT3s and McLarens are bringing such crazy money, are because the make has such a great reputation, and the cars have, you know, for the most part, a reliability that goes synonymous. You buy a Porsche, even an old Porsche, you walk out to the garage, you can drive that car anywhere you want, and you know it'll make it back home. A car like this, I think anytime you want to use it, you've got to have one or two technicians on site with you to get the car programmed and up to temperature and usable so that you can go enjoy it for an hour then put it back for a month.
We're dancing around a bunch of BS because you cannot.
I don't.
I mean, a McLaren F1, you're telling me you can just get in that car and drive down the groceries? I think a
so.
959, not so much.
I think
it's been sitting around for a while. I mean, look.
Hopefully you'll use it.
I mean, I think that this is a value, I guess is my point. I think that these are undervalued. I think that this car is one of those hypercars that will at some point people are going to go, oh yeah, this car is that significant, and they're going to go up. But that's my opinion. What do you guys think? Yeah. Let us know in the comments below, and let's move on to the next car. What was the next car that we talked about in the last episode?
John Duckworth, who I had breakfast with yesterday, picked our 1991 Jeep Grand Cherokee. I'm sorry, Jeep Grand Wagoneer, dubbed the Hell Wagon, that was on Bring a Trailer. This sort of resto custom, resto mod JP has been treated to a Hellcat motor, a 7-liter, Hemi motor that's pumping out all kinds of horsepower. The fit and finish of this particular one is really nice, JP. I usually don't like cars like this, but something about this one got me hook, line, and sinker. And JP, I thought this car stood a chance to do really well. So I started the bidding and I went for it. I thought that this car was going to touch and ultimately achieve $138,000. I definitely put you in a precarious position because you wound up taking the over at $140,000. Our car did outstanding, but not quite to our level. It hammered for $126,000 where it's sold on 31 bids. JP, I was 12 over, but still closer. I still think that's a ton of money. I would hope that the seller of this car is pleased with that result. It wouldn't surprise me if it brought a little bit more money, but still 126, I gave standing ovation. That is a lot of money, and I hope they're all pleased. I think everybody wins. And the 126 that was paid for it, I don't know. I mean, really nice vintage Wagoneers bring outstanding money. I'm not sure that you could build this car for $126,000. Maybe you could, maybe if you did the work yourself. But if you're a guy like me or you that wants one of these and you're going to go pay for this thing to be done, I don't know that you could replicate it for the money. So I think still an outstanding value for the buyer as well. JP, your remarks.
Yeah, I mean, you're on the right track. There's no way you could build one of these for $126. Not this build. No. If you go to the website where they build, I think they're starting at $1.50, and then can easily go over $200,000. You start LS swapping stuff like this and making everything bespoke, it gets expensive really, really fast. So yeah, I think 126 grand was a good buy for the person that wanted this car, because like we say it about Porsches all the time, constantly, we're like, okay, here's a 911 with some kind of engine build or whatever, and you can't build it for that money, but you also have to wait. You have to get in line. If you want one of these right now and you go to this guy, and I think the builder is right here in Vegas. If you go down to him, Norbert, I think his name, same along as my dog, you're going to wait a year or two to get your Jeep Grand Wagoneer, your bespoke truck. So I think that whoever bought this thing nailed it. This is kind of like our mantra. It's like, always let someone else build something special and buy it from them, because it never pays off. Never pays off to be the one holding the bag when it comes time to building this stuff. This, I think it's kind of topical. We're talking about trade war issues. Right now, as far as I know, the tariffs that are being suggested are going to be on Canada and Mexico. A lot of car parts are built in those two countries, much more so in Mexico than Canada. But that's the thing about a global market. When the Ukraine war started, that was during, while COVID was still going and a lot of places were still locked down. And the big problem that was going on, what was that, back in 2022? Nobody could get wiring harnesses and wiring looms. And it turns out Porsche was getting, all of VAGCOM was getting their wiring looms from Ukraine. Right. So a lot of these components get built in other countries and then get assembled in America. So even though something might be manufactured in America, it's still reliant on components from other places in the world. And sometimes by the time the component gets to America, it's been to 3 or 4 countries. So it's like you could have a wiring loom from Ukraine get shipped to Canada where it's labeled, and then it gets shipped to America for assembly in some part. I think special builds like this particular Grand Wagoneer, I think, are going to be even harder to do in the near future, because I think that, we just don't know how this is going to shake out. And I think there's going to be a lot of unintended casualties that people just didn't realize that, okay, this
collateral damage.
Collateral damage is definitely part of any war. And and again, I have an opinion about the whole thing. But I'm not stating it here, really. I'm just saying that there's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to have to shake out, and it's going to be interesting to see where the chips fall. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but I think that is significant when we're talking about these big builds like this on this Jeep. But what do you guys think of the results of this Jeep? Would you rather pay less and get it now, or would you rather pay more and get it brand new 2 years from now? Let us know in the comments, and let's move on. What was the next car that we talked about in the last episode?
All right, JP, we're going to circle back to the 2008 Factory 5 GTM. Now, Factory 5 has made a lot of really cool American, they've done Daytonas and GT40s and all sorts of Cobras, but they built sort of their own car that I assume is built on the same platform as their GT40 replicas, but with their own slightly more contemporary body, and that is the Factory 5 GTM. This particular car has a General Motors sourced 5.7 liter LS6 V8 with a 5-speed transmission, and the car is titled for road use. Our car, JP, was on Cars and Bids out of New Bern, North Carolina, and the car is showing 8,200 miles, which sounds low, but was the highest mileage of all of the cars I looked at to try and find comps. I had to go to Bring a Trailer and look at basically 19 GTM sold cars that averaged around $61,000 in the secondary market. JP, I didn't think this car, with kind of a sort of take it or leave it colorway and more miles than all the other comps, I didn't think this car would even touch 50 grand. So my bid was $48,000. After you got done laughing and picking yourself up off the floor, you said you didn't think the car would even break 40 grand, and you gave us a bid of just $39,999. John, you were right on the money. You just missed a Yahtzee. The car hammered at $38,500, where it failed to sell on 29 bids. So my first question to you is, would this car have done better on another platform? Bear in mind that I think you and I agree these are horrible assets. Not that the car is special, but my God, people, would you just listen to us for 5 minutes? Hire a professional photographer. This is a terrible listing. I mean, good God. And then it just didn't find the audience in Doug DeMiro's backyard. What do you think, JP? Where should this car have gone?
Yeah, I don't think it was platform. I think you're right that it's assets. Look, I talked about it, or we talked about it a little bit on the last episode. This is a car that no one knows what it is. It looks like a supercar, but it's not. It's just kind of a run-of-the-mill kind of weirdo kit car, basically. And it's neat, and I like it. I think there's appeal to this car, but Factory 5 is known for making replicas of cars like, AC Cobras and stuff like that. You see one of those, you know what it is. You immediately know that it's a replica, but you don't care, right? You just know that it's going to be awesome. This car, you've got to... If you're going to get someone to pay any money for it, you're going to have to get them to believe in the dream, right? The idea of this car is, I can't afford a 458 or whatever modern exotic car I have, but I can get this thing for around 50 or 60 grand that may or may not have the same or similar performance. Okay, you want to sell that dream, so you can't just rely on the car. If this were, that's a lot of times we talk about things like 911s or cars that people know what they are, and they might have bad assets, but if you see let's say, what's a car that would be worth what this car should be worth? Let's call it 60 grand. Something like just a run-of-the-mill 911 SC that's in okay shape, right? You're talking about a $50,000 or $60,000 sports car. It helps to have great assets, but you don't absolutely need them because it's a known animal. Someone goes, okay, that's a 78 911 SC. I know what that is. I don't need to be sold on the romance because I can go on YouTube and I've already consumed 50,000 hours of videos telling me how great 911 SCs are. Yeah. Nobody knows what this is. Nobody knows what the experience is like. Nobody knows if this is any good or not. So you got to sell people on it. And that wasn't done. And so nobody cares. And I just don't think any platform would have made any difference without assets. There wasn't even a driving video. There were drive-by videos. There's nothing that's again, this car is probably spectacular drive. I bet it's a hoot. It may not, handle as well as a real supercar or whatever, but that much power and that light of a chassis, you're going to have fun, right? So put someone in the passenger seat, put the camera on wide, and go rip through the neighborhood and show us how fun this is. Giggle while you're doing it. Laugh when you row through the gears because you're like, this is so crazy, right? Let's hear the exhaust. Let's do all those things. Maybe they could have gotten some real money for it. It's never going to happen with assets like this. What do you guys think? Did this Factory 5 have a chance, or was it just on the wrong platform like Deeb says? Let us know in the comments. I definitely don't think a trade war matters for this car, but let's move on. Let's get to some predictions. Let's talk about cars that are being listed right now. Let's analyze those listings, and we're going to do that in 60 seconds. Stick around. Hey guys, I gotta tell you about our friends Godden Porsche of Las Vegas and Godden Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you got to call our friend Steve at Godden. This guy. Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about, and just talk to Steve. He'll find you the classic Porsche you're looking for. Godden Porsche of Las Vegas. Hey guys, you're probably looking at your watch and wondering if Bid Nerds will ever end. So you better talk to our friends at Our Smiths to make sure your Rolex, Tag Heuer, AP, or any fine timepiece is in tip-top shape. Our Smiths, fine Swiss repair. And we are back. Fine Swiss repair. Was that Anthony building your watch, Michael Deeb? Let's see that thing.
Yeah.
That's an AVR right there, everybody. That is the legit deal. Michael Deeb, you lucky duck. Coming back from Idaho. Congratulations on that beautiful watch. Tell us about that thing.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So Anthony made this watch, which is just incredible. I mean, just to go a little bit further, it's a like a homage to the diving watch, which I love. The Rolex and Tag Heuer look, and I don't know if I can pull this off, but if you look back there, you can see the movement, the Swiss movement that Anthony put together and built into this watch. And I mean, the entire thing is custom made. It's absolutely stunning. JP, I can tell you, I bopped around with Anthony for a couple days and ran into a couple of his colleagues who are also in the watch, jewelry, and coin business. And they wanted to try the watch on right off my wrist and onto theirs. And to see Anthony's colleagues marvel at the watch and look him in the eye and be like, dude, this is awesome. And to see the compliments he got from his peers in the industry really kind of hammered it home for me, just how special this watch is. They were very happy for him, and of course he was very proud of it. And so I'm going to wear the snot out of this thing and then report any hiccups along the way. But I've had it now for a few weeks, and it's nothing. I put it on the dresser at night, I put it on in the morning, and it's perfect time. So I love this thing. It's also heavy. My shoulders are getting bigger as we speak.
You look like you've been working out.
Yeah, this watch weighs a pound. I'm sure it weighs a pound. It's a real piece of machinery. So thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Our Smiths. Very cool.
Very exciting. So you guys, if you are looking for a custom piece, not only does Our Smiths repair your Swiss timepieces, but he also occasionally builds one-off amazing pieces like that. So again, the very, very special watch. That's awesome. All right. Those were made in America, so no worry about tariffs there. Will a trade war with Canada and Mexico crash the classic car market? We have a bunch of we've got some really cool cars that, I don't know, every one of the cars tonight is kind of special to me for one reason or another. Let's get to the first car on the list. What is that, Michael Deeb?
All right, JP, I selected for us, currently listed on P-Car Market, is a 22,000-mile 1993 Porsche 964 RS America, a car I once owned and loved to pieces. JP, if you're an air-cooled fan, there's no way you don't like this car. Super cool car. Now, of course, they're not quite as fancy or as performance-oriented as the European or the rest of the world RSs, but Porsche did make a special car for our market, and that's what you see here. These cars were offered for sale with 4 options. Our car is a 2-option car. So JP, this car has limited slip differential, and it has, what's the other thing it has? Now I forget already. Jeez Louise. Air conditioning. So super cool. 2 things it doesn't have are the sunroof and the radio. So what's nice about that, I think the slick top cars will be worth more money down the road. So if you're speculating on your RS America, you may want to try and hold out for a slick roof, because I think they'll be worth more down the road. And then as a performance thing, you lower the center of gravity, yada, yada, yada. Limited slip differential is the only one of the 4 options. It's a real performance option. I don't know how you could have ordered an RS and not tick that box, but most of the cars that are out there in the secondary market don't have limited slip. The fact that this one does is really nice. And then, of course, if you live in a hot weather climate like my buddy does here in Las Vegas, this one has air conditioning, and the air conditioning unit on 964 is actually pretty good. So this is a very desirable car, JP, because of the way it's optioned and because of the low miles. That being said, JP, and here we go. These are terrible photographs. I mean, really, really awful. The car was not even detailed prior to photography. JP, if you get to a photo of the engine compartment, pause for a second and take a look at all the water and dirt marks that are on the entry to the trunk and on like the funnels for the intake and on the shroud of the fan. There is dirt galore through this car. It just doesn't look like somebody spent the money to get it buffed out and detailed, and then obviously they didn't spend the money on photography. And I think that's a mistake. And then this car winds up on P-Car Market. No surprise here. You've got sort of like the most morally bankrupt platform, not guiding or giving their clients, advice on how to maximize the return on their investment. Just let's get it listed for you right away, and if it sells, we get paid. Do you see what I'm talking about? Like how bad that is? You could just go in there with a wet paper towel and make this car look $20,000 better. But I just think, JP, that this car, the way it's equipped, and with the low miles that how it presents, that if this car were treated correctly with the right preparation and the right assets, and then brought to, say, Bring a Trailer, this could be a really close to $200,000 example. And I don't think that stands a chance here on P-Car Market for all the reasons I just said. So, JP, we love the cars. We cover them occasionally. You and I would, basically cut off a pinky toe to have this car because it's really cool, especially for you. This is the Polnik paintway. But, man, they've done a just subpar job bringing this car to market. And as such, I don't think this car stands a chance to hammer for a selling price. And then the laughable thing is how much over $200,000 this car is listed for in the what do they call it? The chum bucket. The what do they call it? The deal tank. So JP, take it away. What do you see that maybe I missed when you look at these images, and what do you think of the car? And then we'll get into the results.
I don't think I saw anything that you didn't. I mean, it's all pretty obvious that they just, like you said, didn't spend any time on the presentation on this thing. Look, we all know black is a very difficult color to maintain on a car. That's par for the course. You own a black car, it's going to look best the moment just before it comes off the showroom floor is the best it's ever going to look. You're constantly be chasing the tail of the dragon, trying to get that glossy black back. You just kind of live with it. But when it's time to sell the car, that's when you go out and you spend the money on a detail. If this car were a higher mileage driver class 964 RSA, it'd be one thing. But this thing has low enough miles that, like you said, this is a very special version of this car. The Carfax does note that there was an accident at some point, and then the seller does mention in the comments that the dry cleaner backed into the front hood or something. And there's paint meter readings to indicate that it wasn't that big a deal, and Carfax says it was a minor accident, whatever. All of these things are little things that are part of what, we say in the car world is stories, right? Does your car have any stories? Well, this one has stories, and now you got to try to figure out how big a deal this was. If this car were on Bring a Trailer or Somo or one of the better car auction platforms, a lot of this stuff would be flushed out. And, we always talk about on classic 911s that you should always have a picture under the hood because that's where the option codes are. You mentioned that this car has only two of the four options that these cars came with, and they're important. The slick top, absolutely right, Deeb, is definitely more sought after than the sunroof, and everyone wants that limited slip. And a lot of us actually do like the air conditioning. I mean, if you were going to actually use this as a race car, then okay, you don't want the AC. But even a lot of guys that are taking on the track like to have that AC because it works. So the option codes are really important. They're more important on this car than maybe any other version of a 911. And here you have an indication of a front end accident. You have a car where the options are really important, and we suspiciously don't have a picture out of all the pictures of under the hood. Now, why is that? Was that just an oversight, or are we trying to cover something up? It's like it's one of these unforced errors that you see over and over and over again on P-Car Market. It's because they are a bunch of hacks and they waste everyone's time. They should not have accepted this listing unless the car has like a ridiculously low reserve that we don't know about, which let's be honest, that's not going to be the case. We know that the reserve is likely very, very high. So this car is kind of DOA. Everyone's going to be looking at it going, well, I mean, there's no driving video. There's no option codes. There's this talk of an accident. It is an RSA, so it's going to be worth something inherently, and people are going to bid on it. But we know it's just destined for the chum bucket. What do you guys think in the nerd herd? What kind of bids? What do we think this thing is going to bring, despite all that?
All right, JP. So I'm going to give you a bunch of numbers here. Our friends at Classic.com tell us that 1993 RS Americas in the secondary market typically bring $159,100. Our car, which is listed out of, give it to you again, Santa Barbara, California, showing just 21,791 miles, is currently, the bid is currently at $101,911. It closes in 2 days, and it's got 3 bids. JP, I think that the car is going to hammer shy of Classic.com's average. I think $148,964 will be the final bid, where it will fail to sell and wind up in the deal tank for north of $200,000. JP, I think they're going to be asking $220,000 for this car, $220,964 or something along those lines. It's at 101.
101. Your number was 140.
48.
48. Yeah, I'm gonna go right under you. I'm gonna go 145,964. I'll play that game. Most everyone in the nerd herd is agreeing with us that this is somewhere in the $1.50 range. I am with you 100%. Deeb, this car should be a $200,000 car. And that's if the miles are correct. Anthony from Hoursmiths is chiming in going, do we really think this thing only has 21,000 miles? I mean, we don't know. This car could be totally legit, but the listing and the just the lack of attention to detail and the platform that it's on makes you go, okay, I'm asking questions. And, you know, that's another thing about P-Car Market. They have the Carfax listed, but one thing that P-Car Market doesn't do is they'll put a PDF and list that, but it's not a link to the actual current Carfax. Now, I looked at the Carfax on this one, and it does say at the top of the printout that it was done, a week ago or something like that. Okay, fine, but what, you can't fake a document? I mean, are you kidding me? Again, we don't know. Probably that's not the case. I'm sure it's legit, but there's just so many weird questions, and this platform just doesn't do a good job at inspiring confidence. This car's dead on arrival, and no one from out of the country is going to buy it because they can't buy anything from America, right? I don't know. Is there going to be a... What do you guys think this car will bring? Let us know in the comments. It sure is a beautiful car, and I sure do want it. And having a 964 RSA is definitely the dream.
A black one, slick top,
black,
limited slip, AC, 2P. That car is so you.
I want to show a driving video, but there just isn't one. All right, let's move on to the next car. What do we got?
All right. So we haven't seen JP for a couple of weeks. So let everybody know he's back. We have a 1989 Toyota MR2 Supercharged on Doug DeMero's Cars and Bid site. Our car is on a clean. What is MS, JP? What state is MS? Missouri?
Massachusetts, Missouri? I don't know.
Massachusetts? Somebody help me out with that. The car is located in Scottsboro, Alabama. Say hi to Ann for us while you're down there. And our car is showing 69,500 miles. JP, the car is basically stock, manual transmission, gorgeous little seats. Those seats look very inviting. And this was the hot rod version of the car. The supercharged one made basically an extra like 25 horsepower, bringing horsepower up to 145 and torque up to 140. And I think this little, just over 2,000 pound car comes alive, like 2,500 pounds. And now you got like almost 150 horsepower. I bet you this thing can get out of its own way. And JP, how much do you laugh when you look at these wheels and think of Volkswagens that had also a very similar teardrop design in period? Isn't it funny how they all copy one another? But JP, the car looks to be in really nice condition. The assets are terrible. Now, I wouldn't expect great assets with this listing, but oh my God, if you would have done so, I think you'd have people like really fighting over this car. So JP, our car closes tomorrow. It's already at a respectable number when we talk about what these cars expect to bring in the secondary market. But this does look like, fair mileage and really good condition and unmolested. three things on a car you would not expect, especially one as rare to the market as a supercharged MR2 from 1989. So JP, talk to me, man. What else do you see when you look at this car? Boy, those seats look really nice.
Right?
I'm really impressed. Really good car, really good condition. I hope this thing does well, but man, better pictures would have helped a lot.
Yeah, I mean that seems to be the theme of the night. Even though we were supposed to talk about trade war and if that would affect the classic car market. Yeah, this is a time capsule. I graduated high school in 1989. I remember one of my buddies got one of these as a graduation present. And, you know, I really liked my Scirocco, but I was pretty jealous of his MR2 Supercharged with the T-tops. This car, I am so damn sick of Porsches. I am so over spending all the money on repairing them and waiting forever to get them fixed when you do have to have them repaired. I'm tired of having to spend all this money on cars that really aren't that fast, especially when we're talking about the classic ones. I'm just sick of Porsches. I am like kind of going into 2025 going, you know what? Forget it. I'm going to go. I want to go on a, no cars worth more than 20 grand. And I think you could have just as much fun and be just as flossy. I think you roll into a Cars and Coffee with this supercharged T-top little boxy little thing, and you're going to get as much attention as all the jerk-offs in their hot rod 911s with stripes and stupid stickers all over them. And on the canyon roads, man, how do you not have fun in something like this? This short little wheelbase of that supercharger is just, God, it's just a good time. What's it going to bring? How much is it going to cost me? Is this car going to fit in my under $20,000 ethos? Is that going to work in my new paradigm that I'm building?
I think you're safe. JP, Classic.com says that a factory supercharged MR2 is a $20,400 average price. Our car was languishing, but has gotten some bids since I've opened up my laptop to do the show. So initially, JP, so our car is currently sitting at $14,500 on 35 bids, and it closes tomorrow. So we're 16 hours away from the hammer. JP, my original bid was $16,002, but that doesn't hold water anymore. I actually think this car is going to do pretty well. So I'm going to go right to the average. I'm going to go $20,002. So $20,002 to you, JP, and say that this car makes Classic.com's average, and it does bring 20 grand, and that you should bid on this car because I think you'll be very happy in it for a very short amount of time.
For a short amount of time. Look, I think this car is going to do better than the Classic.com average. Right. I'm going to go 21 grand because I think the supercharged ones are really rare, and I don't remember seeing one this nice. We've covered MR2s in the past, and everyone makes fun of me, but I don't remember covering one this clean and with the supercharger. And again, I'll just keep going on my rant. Not only are these things fun and less expensive to maintain, but you don't have to maintain them. You can pour sand in the oil, just take the oil cap off, put gravel in there, screw it back on and go, and it'll just keep going and going and going. I have a great relationship with all my Porsche mechanics. I know them all well. We're friends because I see them all the time. I don't want to know my mechanic. Okay, I want to be like, oh, geez, I need to replace a CV boot on this thing. Where do I go? I don't even know where to take a Toyota to get repaired because you never have to. I will be paying attention to this auction tomorrow, and if you guys see... I don't know what my handle on Cars and Bids is. I think it might be Bid Nerds. So look for Producer John or Bid Nerds on the bidding tomorrow, and maybe where is this car? It's in Mississippi. Maybe we'll have to take a road trip to Mississippi, or we'll fly it to Mississippi, and then we'll go see Chris Carbine down there in Marlins.
Yeah, Alabama. I think if we go get this car, I think Ann will cook dinner for us if we wind up in Alabama. So let's go see her. Yeah,
let's do it. Yeah. All right, let's move on. What else we got on the list?
All right, JP, let's see. We have a pick-em-up truck. Yeah. John picked for us a 1973 Datsun 620 pickup with a 4-speed that is running no reserve on Bring a Trailer. JP, this is a very American car out of Atwater, California, showing 91,000 miles, 1.6 liter inline four with a Weber carburetor and a 4-speed manual. The current owner has painted the car himself. Gray cloth upholstery on the bench seat, steel 14-inch wheels, and a sliding rear window. I mean, JP, this car put many a kid through high school and college because of its reliability and its affordability. And it's interesting to see how refurbished ones, especially 4-wheel drive ones, bring great money. And we've seen a return to the sort of 70s and 80s era graphics really spruce those cars up. But this looks like one that hasn't been treated to all that stuff. And it stands as an interesting juxtaposition to those cars that are breaking the bank for $30,000, $35,000, and $40,000 on BAT all day long. This car is just a different caliber. And as such, I think, this car will, if it's lucky, bring close to 10 grand. So JP, I love the grille on this with the black bumper and the 4 headlights and the Datsun logo. I just, I can smell this car. I can hear it wheezing through the gears. But I also know what a workhorse this thing is, like a mule that'll just get the job done. Very cool car. It's a shame they're not really worth more money, but man, if you just needed a mode of transportation, you would do a lot worse than this. What do you think, JP? Why'd you pick the 620 pickup with a 4-speed manual?
Yeah, I had one of these just out of high school when I bought a Hurricane, not a Huracan, but a Hurricane, a
Honda.
CBR 600 Hurricane. And I had a little white 620 pickup truck just like this one, and my white on red Hurricane looked really cool in the bed of that truck. I had the HRC stickers on the back, and it was just, look, people are always looking for vehicles to bring on classic car rallies. Our friend Solomon, he goes on every classic car rally there is. A lot of the classic car rallies require you to have something, from 1989 or older. And, so everyone's going out and getting Porsches, or even there's a lot of pictures of this truck in the garage. There's 240Zs in the background. Even the 240Zs are now, $30,000 to $60,000 cars and up. There just really aren't very many classic sports cars that haven't seen huge appreciation, whether it's either for people wanting to spend more money on them, the value's actually gone up, or just inflation. Either way, it's really hard to find a classic sports car that you can have fun in. The thing about these little trucks is they're kind of like the little Datsun B10s that were raced. I mean, it's a front engine, rear wheel drive, super light. You put a little bit of suspension in these things and they are just a hoot. It's not a race car, but you can have a lot of fun in one of these. And it kind of goes along with that MR2 that we just talked about. I'm sick of spending ridiculous amounts of money on stuff. I love the idea of owning like a 930 turbo and driving this every day. Have the cool car that, and then just drive everywhere else you're going. I want the people to look down on me. I want the guy in the Lexus LS, whatever, $150,000 stupid SUV to look down and, in traffic and go, oh, who's the poor guy in that stupid little poor pickup truck? And it's like, that's me. I'm fine. Think of me that way. I love it. I love the incognito-ness of stuff like this. This just has all the flaws. If I had a kid going to high school, I would get him one of these instead of anything modern. Rami had his nephew out, and I'm like, oh, you like cars? He's like, yeah, I really like cars. I'm like, you're driving now? You have a license? Yeah, I have a license. Like, what's your first car? Where'd you get? He's got like a brand new Lexus something. I'm like, what?
Come on.
Brand spanking new? You're 60. Like, that's just so stupid. Don't get your kid a brand new car. All right, what's this thing going to bring? Is it going to bring anything? Does anybody pay anything for these?
I'm still reeling from incognito-ness. That was a great
word, right?
Great poll. Absolutely. That's totally a word now. It's been on the internet. JP, according to our friends at classic.com, that the 73 620s bring $12,800, which is more than I would have thought. Now, our car is running no reserve, so it has a chance to do well. And it does have 2 days before it closes. It's going to close on Tuesday. But JP, right now we're only at $6,200, which is there's a 620 in there if you look real hard, on just 5 bids. JP, I wonder if this car will break 10 grand when you just sort of read the description and see how just kind of average this car is. So my number for this car is 9,620. Again, no reserve. It's going to sell. Because of the no reserve, I have every confidence this car will easily break 10 grand and go to 12. But just if it was my money, I think I'd get off the car at $9,620. And I think a lot of people out there will as well. JP, tell me why I'm wrong.
Tough to do because I think you're right. It's just, it's not nice enough to bring that big money. This is a utility, fun, classic truck. I don't think anyone's buying this for a car show. They are going to buy it to kind of rip around and maybe actually use it as a pickup truck. Maybe it's a prepper truck because it doesn't have a computer chip in it. So, when the EMP blast goes off, you can just go out and get it, put a battery in it and drive away, right? Or change the points. Yeah, and it has some rust damage that's been repaired and stuff like that. And I mean, is this the original color? I think it actually is the original color. Again, I like the truck. Is it going to break 10 grand? Yeah, I think it will, but not by much. I'm going to go $10,500. Bring a trailer, likes no reserve auctions. So it does have the potential to do well. So yeah, I'm going to be crossing my fingers for this one. I don't know if I'm going to bid on it though. As much as I love it, here in Las Vegas, I do want something like this, but
where is it?
I don't know where it is. I think it's in California. But you kind of need something with air conditioning in the summertime. Yeah. Unfortunately, I've got a Macan. I'll just, steal it for my wife or something like that. All right. Should we move on? Should we go on to, do we got time for another car?
One more.
Or do
we got time.
One more?
We got time.
Okay,
We're
let's
good.
do one more. Let's do another one. All right. Well, actually, Anthony says, what did Anthony say? He's trying to give me a hard time. He says that, he says that I'm just all about, I'll never get out of a Porsche because I'm all about the abuse. Yeah, here it is. JP is a P-car slut like the rest of us. He likes the abuse. It really is like being a battered woman, right? I can change it. I can change him. I can change the car. I can make it better. It was just, you don't know the car like I do.
Oh my God, JP, that's very good. That's very funny.
And then you just keep going back, and every time you get a black and blue eyeball, and lose a tooth. I've been telling everybody that at a dental emergency. No, I just had to, sell off a gold tooth to pay for another goddamn broken Porsche. I hate Porsches. I'm so over them. Okay, what's the next car on the list?
Hey, JP, it's a Porsche, a 2004 Porsche 911 Carrera 4S, a C4S Cabriolet, 6-speed manual, sports seats, everybody, and just $45,300. This is running as an inspected ad on Cars and Bids. Our car is listed out of Chantilly, Virginia, on a clean Virginia title, and it is Carrera white. And I'll go out on a limb, JP, and just say, based on my experience as a Porsche geek, Carrera white on a C4S is kind of a rare combination. And I think Buddha, who's in the chats, and JP, who's my partner on this, I think we all agree that the rear end of this car is the nicest ass in the automotive lexicon. This car from the rear is one of the prettiest cars of all time. That goes for coupes or cabriolets. And it's interesting because the turbo is similar, but with the wing, it winds up being different. And this is the one that is a really great car to follow, and follow you will, because this is a hell of a performance car. So the C4S has wider track and upgraded brakes, and just a really neat car. The option with the sports seats is very rare. I would say extremely rare on cabriolets. I like the way this car is equipped, JP. Miss me with the black wheels with the red stripes, but that is an easy fix. $500-$600 down at your local powder coater to put them back to silver. And I think you're in business. You've got a low mile car. Now, what's interesting, JP, is that nowhere in the listing, and this is the only one of the cars where I actually read all the comments, nowhere in the listing and nowhere in the comments did anybody discuss or address an intermediate shaft bearing, which as we know, JP, these cars are susceptible to failure, and that could be a catastrophic expense to a new owner. It's stunning to me that our car is going to close here in a day or two, and nobody's asked them about it. And nowhere in the listing did Cars and Bids say whether or not it has been done or otherwise. So, in that regard, it's kind of deplorable to me that people are talking about transacting on a car of this caliber without discussing or validating whether or not this has been done or not. So really interesting to me, JP. If somebody in the herd is thinking about pursuing this car, they need to ask the seller if it has been done. And if they can't answer for it, then you need to budget. I mean, what does it IMS cost today, JP? In the old days, it was $3,000. I doubt very seriously you're going to get in and out of the dealership for under $5,000 or $6,000 to get this service done. So, JP, what do you think about this car and the lack of transparency with regards to disclosing if a shaft of IMS has been done or not?
Yeah, I mean, that is kind of the kiss of death of this car. This car is exactly what I've been ranting about all night when I say I'm so gosh darn sick of Porsches. This is a car that I want to love. You're right, Deeb, that the white is very rare in the C4S. Body style. This particular car is dying for some coilovers to get it down to Euro height or better. This 4x4 status thing just looks awful on these cars. This is really a beautiful car. I'm surprised that if whoever bought this car originally optioned the red seat belts and the red stitching and the sport seats didn't option for the color matched rear seats. If the backs of these sport seats were white, oh my gosh, those would just so pop. Yeah, the wheels suck, but like you said, easy thing to do. And then throw some spacers on here. Look, the problem, this car's had 5 owners. It doesn't have that many miles on it. It's got 40-something thousand miles on it. You look at the Carfax and you see, okay, the first owner drove it like 4,000 miles. Second owner drove it, up to somewhere around 9 or 10,000 miles. This car was 10 years old before it had 10,000 miles on the car. And one thing about these 996 era cars, they had a lot of problems early on, not just intermediate shaft bearings, but they had problems with the rear main seal. They had problems with camshaft seals. They had all kinds of stupid little problems that weren't really catastrophic like the IMS is, but under warranty, they were taken care of. So if the cars were driven normally, the cars were usually had those problems taken care of. This car has 40-something thousand miles on it, and there's no indication that any of that stuff has been repaired. So that means it's going to be on you if you're the one that winds up owning this car. The IMS bearing at 45,000 miles, this is exactly when you wind up seeing them go. We don't know if the clutch has been replaced on this car yet. Typically, when you replace the clutch, that's a good time to go ahead and update the IMS because it's one of those things where it's the same process. You got to pull the transmission off. It's a while you're in there kind of thing. So you'll save thousands doing it at the same time as the clutch. But yeah, you're right, Deeb. You're in the $5,000 to $6,000 range with a clutch and an IMS bearing upgrade at least. At a dealership, it's going to be much, much more. That's at an independent shop.
Yeah.
So, this is the kind of car that you're going to get behind the wheel and drive and just be like, oh my God, this thing's spectacular. These are so fun to drive. Whether it's in a convertible or a hardtop version, they just really are spectacular cars. But this is the kind of car that can get you very, very deep in trouble very quickly. This is the kind of car that you buy. Oh, look, I'm getting a deal on it. It's only, 30, 40 grand or whatever. I'm getting this spectacular Porsche. It's only got 40,000 miles and you get to 50,000 miles. I'll replace that IMS when it's time for the clutch. And then one day you start it up and it's going tick, 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 tick. That sounds weird. That means you're done, right? Game over.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
If you shop for one of these cars for any amount of time, if you're like going, I think I might want a 996, and you start looking at 996 ads, you start going, you see every 5th to 10th ad, every other, you're sitting there going, okay, I'm looking at this ad, new engine. Huh, that's weird. Had an engine replace it, 65,000. Oh, that's weird. And then a couple more ads. Engine replace it, 75,000. Engine replace it, 30,000. You're like going, do these need engines replaced all the time? This is just heartache waiting to happen without having that IMS, without having just stacks of maintenance records. This car, to me, is like buying a salvage car with no idea what's going on. I think a 996 without an IMS upgrade is like buying a salvage title car. I think it's that kind of problem because it's and the thing is that some salvage cars can be worthwhile, on the titles if it's an old classic car or something like that. But like a car like this, you're always when it's time to sell it, that's the first thing everyone's going to ask. And you're right, Deeb. I'm shocked that no one in the comments has brought it up. That's like, what are you hiding here? They either don't know, which means they're idiots, or two, they do know. Which, come on, you think Doug DeMuro doesn't know what an IMS bearing is?
Of course he does.
Of course he does, right? Of course he does. This is reminiscent of something you would see on PCAR Market. I'm surprised.
Totally.
Doug
really
is doing something this lame. What's this car going to bring?
All right, JP. So according to our friends at classic.com, C4S cabs with a manual transmission typically bring $39,400 in the secondary market. Our car on Cars and Bids closes on February 4th, which is, I think, 2 days from now. That's on Tuesday. JP, our car is currently sitting at $25,996 on just 6 bids. So, JP, I think the car is going to have a hard time. I think if he's lucky, he'll get to $35,996. I don't know if it'll sell for that number or not. But what's interesting, and for all the reasons that you mentioned, I think the rare white, the rare sports seats, the manual transmission, the low miles, that even if it doesn't have the IMS bearing, that if you could acquire this car for under 40 grand, I think you could paint the wheels silver, do the coilovers and the wheel spacers that you mentioned, maybe even pay an independent to do the IMS bearing. This could be a over $50,000 example for how nice and how well appointed the car is if it's given the right stance and the right asset. Now, it's a bit of a gamble to do that, but geez, if you bought the car and enjoyed it and did all those things to it, I think you have a really good chance to get off this car and still make a couple of bucks because of how poorly it's presented and sort of the condition and the poor listing in general. So it's very interesting, JP. This car is really intriguing to me, man. I wouldn't mind parking that car in my garage, but I would preemptively do the IMS. And if I had to have it towed out to me from wherever we decided it was in Virginia, I would have the tow company do it as a do not start and just bring me the rolling car and I'll deal with it when it gets here,
Yeah, what was your bid?
I didn't give you one, did I? JP, yeah, I think so. I think it'll hammer at $35,996. I don't know if it'll sell for that. You never know what they want on Doug DeMuro's side. I think if you could get it for that number, like if that was a selling price, I'd say it was still well bought, even if you have to preemptively do the IMS.
Yeah, I mean, so. There's a lot of questions about the economy. The whole point of this show was to talk about will the trade war or a trade war hurt or crash the collector car market. This is one of those cars that I think is going to be really susceptible to anything weird going on the market. There's a lot of indications that things are going well and that the economy will hold up. Obviously America's economy is much bigger than Canada's and Mexico, so we can handle tariffs from countries that, what are we're going to be missing out on syrup or something like that. I mean, I'm joking, but if there's a little bit of a rocky future, this is definitely the kind of car that people aren't going to be buying. I think the classic air-cooled cars, I think, are going to continue to hold. I think the more blue chip stuff will continue to hold and maybe appreciate, but cars like this are going to be a little bit more touch and go because, look, this is $40,000 worth of disposable income is something that someone that only has $40,000 to spend on something they're a lot more sensitive to any kind of strife in the economy. That being said, I think everyone's still pretty much optimistic in this car closing in just a couple of days. Cars and Bids isn't the right place for this. If they buy this car, they're going to have to get it from Virginia to someplace maybe on the West Coast if they want it. So that's going to add some cost to it. I'm with you. I wouldn't drive this car. There's no way. The problem is that, Deeb, you just don't know if it's. The IMS could have failed today, and we just don't know it, or it could be imminent. And you buy this thing, and if you are in a situation where you need a new engine, you have completely lost all your money. It's gone.
Oh yeah,
totally. A new engine for this is $35,000, and the car is worth $35,000, maybe $40,000, maybe on a good day. So yeah, your number was what? 30 what?
$35,996. JP, where you at?
Yeah, I don't think Doug gets there. I'm going to say 31,996.
Okay.
There it is, guys. What do you think of this 996 cab parked in the snow with ugly wheels. Would you take the risk and do some updated maintenance, preventative maintenance, and see if you can make a few bucks in the summertime when the weather gets better? Or would you drive it? Let us know. And that's it. That's a show. My jaw hurts.
No, don't say that. Really?
It does, yeah. It's been
Just from talking?
Just from talking, yeah. So
Yeah.
thanks for hanging out with us, guys. We will be back on Wednesday. That's a show. Shout out to our friends at Godden Classic and Anthony from Hoursmiths.
Hoursmiths.
Guys, Wednesday. Bye.
Night, nerds.
Hey guys, I gotta tell you about our friends Godden Porsche of Las Vegas and Godden Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a